Welcome back to Local Decision. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rusty Ray, and we're joined now by Dave Dirkswager, running for District 4 seat on Anoka-Hennepin's school board. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
And your wife is in that seat now.
Yes, she is.
And she's been there for how long?
4 years, so one term. And she decided to move on because she's got a different job now, much more time intensive. So we talked about it, and my job's not quite that time intensive, especially in the evenings. So I can make that commitment.
Well, surely she can tell you that, especially lately, these school board meetings have been really challenging, I would imagine. That's my characterization, just having watched from a distance.
Yeah.
But so you still feel like it's important, your family wants to be that involved. Tell me more about why you want to be on the school board.
Sure. Yeah, we talked a lot about it, and they are intense lately. We felt it was the right thing to do. You know, things are a little crazy these days, and people are frustrated, confused, mad, you know, and rightfully so in a lot of different ways. But I really think that I can work together with all the different groups out there, all the different voices, bring people together, make decisions that make sense for everybody, and move the district forward in a positive way. I've got some experience working with the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District as a public servant. And at MMCD, you know, I focus on helping the citizens of Anoka County. I lead my staff, I manage budgets, talk with the citizens to make decisions, all in the effort to provide a great service for Anoka County. And that's kind of the same kind of thing we'd be doing on school board. I'm also, you know, proud of what the district has already accomplished. Our strategic plan is fantastic, and it's kind of unique to the district. We do a really good job of planning out both for the now and, you know, well into the future, so we can be ready and keep the whole district staff, you know, on board on what our focus is. So that's one really good thing, and I think the district does a really good job. There's a lot of things you could point to be proud of, and I want to continue that work and make this a school district that we can all be proud of.
Do you think it's been difficult for the district and specifically for the board to stay focused on those longer term or that strategic plan given the challenges of the current situation?
Yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, it's definitely time consuming, you know, and like I said, people are upset and confused, and rightfully so. It's a confusing time for everybody. It's hard. But I think the board has done a good job of being committed to making decisions that keep people safe, you know, with masks specifically. It feels like the right thing to do right now to ask students to wear masks while the numbers are high. You know, hopefully that there's some signs that it's, you know, encouraging in the right direction. And we have to be dynamic with that decision too. You know, not lock into anything that's not going to make sense, you know, a couple months down the road. But the goal is to keep kids in school, and if masks are helping do that, you know, that's a good thing to do. And then also just to keep people safe. You know, the more spread that we have in our schools, the more likely that, you know, unfortunate things are going to happen. So I think it's the right thing to do for now, but it's certainly challenging.
Do you feel like there is a lot of support for that particular perspective? Do you feel like what we may hear, some of the louder voices may be against that perspective, perhaps? I don't want to characterize it too broadly, but
Sure.
Do you feel like there are enough people out there who feel the same way that maybe they haven't spoken and shown up and made a lot of noise at the board meetings?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, those loud voices certainly are heard and noticed by people, but the district does a really good job of sending out surveys and talking with the community, trying to get input, and the majority of people think that masks make sense right now, and then being dynamic with that situation moving forward. But yeah, the majority are still in favor of it, but those, you know, people are vocal about it for sure.
In addition to the well-documented and still being researched health concerns of COVID, what else do you think COVID is, or the situation or the circumstance of COVID right now in the third school year? What do you feel like that is doing, or what are the impacts of that on the school district and, of course, the students and staff in the schools?
Yeah, huge. You know, it's had a huge impact worldwide, but specific to schools. A couple things, you know, academically, not all kids enjoyed, you know, schooling from home last year, and they might have got left behind a little bit. So moving into this school school year and moving forward, we have to find solutions to get everybody back up to speed. And one way to do that is supporting teachers, because teachers got a pool of kids, they all are coming in at different levels. They need to feel supported to try some different techniques and get all those kids back up to speed so they can be in good positions for success. So academic support is going to be huge and a challenge moving forward, something we need to focus on. And then also mental health. I know everybody's exhausted from this whole thing. And students have borne a large weight in that as well. So we need to focus on finding ways that they can have some outreach at school, school counselors, therapists, to make them feel supported, in their mental health too. And that also goes back to teachers, because they're kind of the first line. Not all teachers are experts in that kind of thing, but we can help support them and give them the tools to help those kids who are maybe more in need or need somebody to talk to. So it's definitely important.
So full disclosure, my wife is a teacher in a different district, but I would be remiss to not ask this next question
Sure.
on her behalf. But for teachers also, do you feel like through this and through other circumstances that come up for any public school district, do you feel like teachers really do have a voice in these board level decisions? I mean, there is a union, there is a structure there is a mouthpiece for the teachers union that's very active and very vocal and does have an audience with school leaders. However, do you feel like teachers as a whole have a voice in these kinds and other kinds of decisions?
I think they do, some of the things you mentioned, but it can always be improved. And those relationships, as with all relationships, are important to stay active. You got to continue to improve those relationships. So yeah, that'd definitely be one of my priorities, is hearing teachers out. And I would solicit input, try to have small group meetings, make my email and phone available to teachers if they want to get something, talk about things. Encourage open, transparent dialogue between the teachers and the board so we can make good decisions. The board is a team, teachers are a team. There's a lot of different teams throughout the school district, but we're all one big team in the end. So we have to have those open lines of communication to get things done. And when we have good relationships with the teachers, it benefits the students. Some of the other metro area school districts don't have quite as good a relationship with the teachers as Anoka-Hennepin does. They've done a good job with that over the past years. And we were able to get kids back in school, with the support of the teachers at the end of last year. Some of the other metro schools weren't able to do that. So it's an important thing to do.
Is it fair to measure Anoka-Hennepin against, say, Minneapolis schools, St. Paul schools? You hear all the time, you said it, other people say it, it's the largest district in the state, of course, by numbers. Is it fair to compare them when it comes to decisions like this? Because those two districts and the cities have made some real stark decisions for COVID mitigation and things like that. Is it fair to compare Anoka-Hennepin?
In some ways, yes. And our district, Anoka-Hennepin, does a fantastic job of gathering data, looking at these different metrics, and comparing against different schools where it makes sense, comparable comparisons. And in all those comparisons, we're doing really well and getting better and better and better. One thing that's difficult with some of the metro schools is budgeting. We get our budget, quick overview, 70% comes from state general fund, 20% from property taxes, and then 10 is local and some federal stuff too. So those schools are getting that same chunk or similar chunk from the state, but they also have a huge pool of money they can draw from property taxes. They've got a gazillion houses and corporations and all that stuff they can draw from. Up here, we like things a little more spread out, a little more reasonable, so we don't have that huge chunk of money. So something in the future we could look at is talking with the legislation at the state and trying to get the legislators and try to get a little bit more of that 70%, so that can help bolster our funding a little bit. But yeah, I think overall, when compared to reasonable comparisons, the school district's doing really well and continuing to improve.
Looking ahead, do you think that once we can turn the corner and get back to a more normal situation, which I think is definitely possible and definitely coming, do you think that there are lessons or experiences that the school district has gone through with this COVID situation? The thing that comes to mind is the availability of an online academy. PSEO has been around for a while, and that's an option for students to learn online and to earn a high school diploma through online and do some other flexible things. But the online academy that the district has established and saw the numbers go up when the masking decisions came through. Do you feel like that's one example of, or are there other examples of what the district can carry forward out of this?
Yeah, that's a fact, really good point. I know they're proud of how that developed and being able to offer that as an option moving forward. I'm sure, yeah, there's other things. I know at mosquito control we learned a fair amount with the pandemic and trying to keep people safe, and we're going to use those things moving forward as good options. And I'm sure the school district has some more things they learned too. Maybe I know they learned some lessons with all the distance learning stuff, and how difficult that was to implement. So maybe we can keep some of that for the future. If we wanted to create those sort of options moving forward. A lot of lessons have been learned across the board. Yeah, for sure.
You touched a moment ago on funding structure, and then you touched also before that about mental health awareness and mental health, addressing those needs and catching students back up. All of that ties into the levy, the referendum questions that are before voters in the district to maintain, two measures to maintain the current levies to pay for, to help keep class sizes down and things like that, and then the other to address some of those needs, and then the other that would add an additional levy to help pay for probably helping catch up and kind of the gap there that may have established. Where do you stand on those? Are people asking questions about exactly what those referendums and what those levies or an additional levy would mean? Are you hearing some of that, and where do you stand with that?
Yeah, for sure. You laid it out nicely. Those first two questions are kind of to maintain the status quo, and those are extremely important to get passed because otherwise that we're going to have to cut something, and nobody likes cuts. That doesn't serve the students in any way. So hopefully those things will pass with flying colors. And then that third one is extremely important too, and that focuses on expanding some of those mental health services. So more social workers, more school therapists, that kind of thing. So those students and have an avenue to feel supported, which is so important. They're at school, a vast majority of a lot of days, they need to feel like they can talk to somebody at school. And especially after this, horrible times that we've been going through and hopefully are getting past. But I think that's going to be something that will serve us in the future too, focusing on mental health.
Were there any challenges before the board, before COVID, that the board had started to address or had started to lay out some plans for, or anything else facing the district that, if not for COVID, would have been handled or would have started to see some action that you hope can still get attention as things move forward and if you earn the seat on the board?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's constantly room for improvement and things we're working on. One huge one is the Equity Achievement Plan, addressing the achievement gap. So we've had some success with that already, and things are getting better, but there's room for improvement for sure. I think one thing that's important to point out is that treating people equally is not the same as equity. So we need to address the differences in where students are coming to school. Give teachers the support to find tools that work at the building level to bring those kids up so that, like we talked about before, all kids start at the different levels, bring them all up so that they're ready for success in the future. So that's going to be a huge priority moving forward. It's the #1 strategic priority on our priority list, and really important to continue the good work in that. And we're getting better. There's a lot of room for improvement, and eventually, in the future, a student's background should not predict their school outcomes, and we're not there yet, but that would be fantastic to get to. A couple other really good things that the school has done recently. The new Bridges math for elementary students. I had firsthand with that last year with working with my elementary students or kids at home. That's been a big success, and people are really happy about that. And then we also have a new program that keeps some of our gifted learners in-house, school within a school. So instead of going, those gifted learners need different opportunities. Instead of going off to a private school, we can keep them in and give them what they need to succeed, and that's been really good as well. And then also, just popped into my head, the new middle school, there's some new opportunities for extracurriculars. Archery has been a big one, and then ultimate frisbee, which is near and dear to my heart because I played a lot of that in the past. So I'm excited for when my kids get to that age and maybe helping out with some coaching and that kind of thing.
Yeah, archery has really taken off nationwide, but certainly in Minnesota, where hunting is a way of life and a part of so many lives. But archery in itself and through popular culture even has taken off. But any extracurricular, I would imagine, that can be offered on a district or on a school level would be a key to keeping kids and families involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So important. And then again with COVID, we had some troubles with that recently, but yeah, we're finding we can do those things safely and offering more opportunities too. So there's not just the basic ones. Not all kids might be interested in that kind of thing. give people a chance to find what they're interested in, try different things, and yeah, and keeps families involved. And I've been coaching some soccer with the girls and leading a Girl Scout troop, and it's just really fun to be involved and watch them, make friendships, try different things, and that's a really good thing that the school district can offer.
You just presented the way you see how equity should be addressed. That differs from a lot of other folks and what they see or what they think is happening within the district, within curriculum, within discussions about equity and discussions about race and other things. How big of an issue is that for the district? Your opponent in this race speaks a lot about that and speaks very pointedly about thoughts on critical race theory and things like that. The district tries to address it. We asked the district and got the standard response that I think anybody who asks leadership about critical race theory specifically. But you addressed it. It's been addressed here in this space by your opponent, and he spoke at length about his feelings for that and his convictions that it is being taught and used to train teachers and taught to students. Do you have anything you would like to say in regards to that, or how you are hearing from people, or the way you see its role in the district?
Yeah, a huge question. Thank you. First off, with equity, like we talked about some of the plans to lower that achievement gap. Already done some good things there, and it's the #1 priority, and it's extremely important to continue with. One other thing I'd like to point out is with staffing too. We need to get better. Our staff pools, with teachers of color and staff of color, does not match up with what our population pools are. So we need to continue to work towards that, and ideally, they'd be pretty, right in line. And there's some different things we can try on that, but that's going to be one of my priorities moving forward too. It's extremely important for students of color to be able to look to leaders and see somebody that looks like them. So really important to work on that. Specific to critical race theory, definitely a huge issue right now. When people say that teachers are learning it now or it's already in the district, it's a different thing. That's not actually critical race theory. It's a different kind of technique, that culturally responsive teaching to help teachers kind of be more ready to answer those kinds of questions. So they're two different things. Unfortunately, they have the same acronym, so that causes some confusion. Critical race theory itself, college level course, I would not support that course being taught to our young students. They're not ready for it. That's not the kind of thing we should be doing. But I am extremely committed to any sort of curriculum or policies moving forward that promote diversity and equity and inclusion. It's important to acknowledge differences in students, help students learn about each other, learn about different cultures, take the time to understand those differences so that moving forward we can be ready to deal with those problems as they go into the future and become adults. So yeah, extremely important.
Okay. Dave Dirkswager, we appreciate you coming by here today.
Cool, yeah, thanks for having me. Go out and vote November 2nd.